78 Sports TV here. So I'm checking out my boy Boxing Beats and Rhymes page.
Doing it from Boxing Beats and Rhymes channel.
This is Tony Thompson, chilling with Boxing Beats and Rhymes. Everyone you chilling with Boxing Beats and Rhymes. This is that mere hardcore man store on Boxing Beats and Rhymes YouTube channel.
I don't know if you want to answer. Possible Manny Pacquiao fight with Floyd Mayweather. How you feel about that?
Well, basically, it's a fight that still has the potential to happen.
You take into the ring a lot of rage. Does that work for you, or does it work against you at times?
Who cares? We're in a fight anyway. What does it matter?
Well, for example, rage against Evander Holyfield worked against you.
Well, it. It's a fight, so whatever happens, happens.
Mike, why do you have to talk like that?
Mike Tyson. Some might say he's the poster boy for dysfunction in boxing, or dysfunctional boxers. They may well say that. From the streets of Brownsville, Brooklyn, he grew up doing petty crime, which is part of the course out there. Very ghetto-esque setting is Brownsville. He spent time in a youth correctional facility named Triron. I believe it was Triron. Juvie, basically, for his adolescent indiscretions back then. Could have been Sparfit, but I don't think it was. I don't think it was Sparfit. Obviously, you know about the Costa-Martel story. Mike said himself, even though he was living in suburbia and getting to eat great food and seeing things that he wouldn't see normally in the Catskill Mountains, he kept going back to Brownsville because the ghetto is an exciting place when you're young. It is very exciting. And Teddy Atlas often said that Mike got away with a lot of things with Cuss when he was young, because obviously Cuss was molding his future heavyweight champion. So, Mike did a lot of shit that he probably shouldn't have done. Teddy said that Mike made too strong an advance to his niece, and that's why Teddy pulled the burner on him. Mike said that he didn't do anything untoward to Teddy's niece, and it was all exaggerated. But, that's his side of the story, and Teddy has his. Tyrell Biggs once said, "What if I was to tell you that Mike Tyson is abusive with women?" That was before the rape case. That was before Robin Givens. Mike went on to pound Tyrell in about 7 or 8 rounds. He just pounded Biggs, man. He gave Biggs a beating, man. And that was just alleged. That was alleged. But at the same time, Bill Caton and Jim Jacobs were apparently doing a great job to keep Mike's image clean in front of America for the most part. They were doing a great job on that. I don't know if they paid certain people off before lawsuits came about and stuff like that, but they've done a great job. A great, great job. And obviously you went to Don King. Very dysfunctional, Don King, like only in America, Don King, he's murdered individuals before. They say he's killed 2 people, actually, but he cleaned up his, he managed to recover from jail to be a multimillionaire and make a lot of boxers rich for the most part, and spread a lot of wealth through the sport and put on some great events. That's how I'll word that. But nevertheless, Don is done. Don is done. Mike got together with Robin Givens, dysfunctional relationship for a start. Robin bought Ruth, her mum, who was coaching her how to be a gold digger from young, it seemed. And Mike admitted that the best punch he ever landed, it wasn't a punch. He said he slapped Robin and she bounced off about 3 or 4 walls and stuff like that. And we saw Robin come on the Barbara Walters program. Does Mike hit you? He pushes. She went into a thespian routine. You know what I mean? And that was what it was. Mike stood there emotionless. Mike crashed cars and tried to give the police the cars. I think one accepted and got in trouble. One policeman actually took the car. Mike fought world title fights with VD, according to Jose Torres. who was very close to the camp through Customato, and he was a former champion himself. Mike was said to be banging at least 8, 9 women a day and stuff like that. And just craziness, you know. Went back to the hood, to Dapper Dan's. God knows why people go back to the hood at times. People like Beanie Siegel and Tyson asked for trouble. They asked for trouble, you know, and he ended up fighting Mitch Green and swelling up Mitch's eye and breaking his own hand in the process. In one car crash, Tyson was actually left unconscious behind a wheel, I believe. So it's either he couldn't drive or he was just driving recklessly, just driving like a mad person. I'm not going to go too much into Desiree Washington. You know, I think she was after the money, just my opinion. And Mike, you know, he paid, you know, he wanted to play with a lot of girls and he paid for that. That's what happens, you know. He come out of jail and he just didn't give a damn about the history and the legacy he was leaving behind in boxing no more. That no longer was important to him. I get the impression that pre-Don King, you know, Mike was fighting for legacy and for the history, and he had a different purpose them days. The Kevin Rooney, Steve Lott, Jim Jacobs, Bill Caton, and Customato. Mike Tyson was a different Mike Tyson, you know. Came back out, performances wasn't right. He missed so many punches against Buster Mathis Jr. He tried to kill John Coyle against Lou Savarese. He was trying to get a Savarese, man. That was just crazy. He tried to break Francois Botha's arm in the clinch that time. Obviously, we have Eargate, which is when he bit Holyfield's ear. Took a piece of his ear off. You know, he bit deep into Holyfield's ear. You know, he was on coke, weed, and all that stuff there. He bit Lennox Lewis in the leg in the press conference in the build-up to their fight. You know, I suppose the signs were there from early. But you didn't really pick up on it because, you know, it was just, it was fresh at the time. Like when he fought Jesse Ferguson after the fight, which was registered as a TKO win, even though it should have went down as a disqualification because that's what the referee adjudicated it as a disqualification, but they wanted to keep Tyson's KO streak going, so they put it down as a TKO. Tyson said to the interviewer after, "I wanted to drive his nose bone into his brain." I didn't hear nothing like that in boxing at the time. I want to drive his nose bone into his brain. But, you know, Tyson wasn't in no major trouble at the time. He was still a contender. So it was still in the bounds of relative normality. He's still just about. But this wasn't a gimmick. People seem to pin the Mike Tyson aura down to a gimmick. It wasn't a gimmick. And people seem to, for some reason, people downplay the air of intimidation that one fighter can bring. Like, oh, if you didn't have intimidation, you wouldn't win fight. Dude, that is as much of a skill or as much of your repertoire and weaponry as the jab, the hook, shoulder roll, footwork. It's just as much. If that's part of your makeup, that's part of your makeup. And people say, well, if you take away the fear factor, then it's not half the fighter. Well, if I take away your jab, you're not half the fighter. If I take away your footwork, you're not half the fighter. If I cut the ring down on you. So what sense? It doesn't make no sense what you're saying. That was part of his portfolio, like it or not. You know? A skill is just something that you use to achieve a certain goal. And a skill is defined as a concept that you can work on. You can work on your skill and take it to another level. That's all a skill is. That's all a skill is. It's you guys getting into this thing. Oh, when you say skill, you mean he's got pretty footwork and he can do the shoulder roll and he can throw 5 jabs on the trot. No. A skill is just something you can work on. You can work on intimidation. You can work on your intimidation factor. It is a skill. You might have it naturally, but you can work on it. Like guys like Duran, Liston, Tyson, I don't think they had to do too much work on their intimidation factor. Some people just have it in abundance. And some people, you know, they work on it. They work on it, and, you know, it can be a big heads up in the ring, having that. Larry Holmes said that's the first opponent that he felt really wanted to hurt him badly. It's Tyson. You know, that just says something in itself, man. He's fought Tim Witherspoons, Ronaldo Snipes, Ernie Shavers, and this guy, Ken Norton, Weaver, fought Ali, sparred with Ali. And, you know, after all that, Mike's the only guy that he felt really wanted to probably kill him in the ring, you know what I mean? Even when he done that one-man show, I was looking at some of the women in the audience, and when he was talking, because women, I mean, women are women. I don't understand a lot of the psychology behind women. Women sometimes are attracted to men that they're really scared of, and you can see these women, they were fascinated by Mike, but they were scared at the same time. You can see the fear, but they were fascinated by his stories and his aura and his presence, you know. He actually went to jail again after the Desiree Washington thing for an incident with the motorist, you know, for 9 months. And I'm not even going to go through all his quotes in the media. It's just ridiculous. It's just so many. Eating Lennox's kids, told the female reporter, don't talk to me no more unless you're going to fornicate with me. He told another reporter, I just want to stomp some people in the nuts so they can know the pain that I've been through. And just so many, you know. Even recently, although the Canadian TV host, he started some shit. And Tyson just went off. He stomped Don King. And I'm sure he stomped a few more people in his time. And that's just Mike. You know, another dysfunctional boxer. He was probably a little dysfunctional when he got into boxing, you know. And I don't know if the fame made him feel he was invincible. Or I don't know if the head punches sent his judgment off kilter at times. I don't know.
The Butt Stadium, Coventry, an international contest between Randolph Turpin of Leamington and tall, fair-haired Jan de Bruin of Holland. After a bit of sparring, Turpin opened up with good effect. It began to look like another quick-fire Turpin victory when the Dutchman went down, but de Bruin survived the round. But victory for Turpin eventually came by the usual knockout.
Randolph Turpin, you know, he only held the title for 64 days that he took from Ray. At the age of 23 years of age, he had 42 fights already. You know, that's a lot of fights. Randolph married when he was very young. When he was a cook in the Navy. At 18, Randolph swallowed disinfectant in what some say was an attempted suicide at 18 years of age. He divorced from his wife Mary before he won the title. They split up way before that though. Very young. He paid nearly £8,000 in a decree to his wife back then, and that's a lot of money. Mary alleged that he used to beat her severely. They had a son with which he had a very distant relationship. For the Sugar Ray Robinson fight, his advisor, whose name I can't remember, he influenced Randolph to move to Wales and train in Wales. There was a castle, Grich Castle, for the Robinson fight, is where he trained. Turpin's sparring partners feared for the beatings he would inevitably administrate on them on a regular. One heavyweight spoke of how he got his teeth busted out, and that's despite using a gum shield. Randolph was a big attraction to the castle, which used to have galleries and other attractions. You know, the guy running it was all about money, and he'd do anything just to make money. And Randolph brought thousands to the castle and didn't get paid. He never got paid for that. And a lot of his money went missing. It wasn't very nice. There was a 90-day rematch clause on the title he won for Robinson, hence why he had to defend so quickly. Ray was forced to fight himself, even though the cut he suffered in the first fight surely couldn't have healed sufficiently in time. But obviously they had to exercise the clause, or Randolph could opt to go elsewhere and take a few defenses. On the boat trip to America, or at least near around that time, he met a woman named Adele. Adele will later come up in the story. Jack Solomons, who was the Eddie Hearn or the Frank Warren of the day. He was a big British promoter. In a newspaper article, he fessed up that to secure fights in America for his fighters, he had to pay the mob. In the first Robinson fight, Turpin cleared £11,000. Solomon made £38,000. Second fight, Turpin grossed $70,000 in the second Ray fight. In the second fight with Ray, the promoters cleared $125,000. Regardless of that, he made decent money. He unwisely invested in some hotel despite being warned. His family and friends tried to run the hotel with no experience. His business partner and his advisor influenced his decision. I think the business partner's name is Leslie T. Saltz. I was reluctant to say it because I'm not sure, and that could be wrong. His manager, George Middleton, was asking, did you not get your solicitors to look over the whole deal? And he said no. He's going to use his partner's solicitors, which is crazy, you know. And it didn't last very long. His business partner actually walked out on him because Randolph was bringing all waifs and strays there because, you know, I think he had a bit of a soft heart. He was a tough man, but he had a bit, and he'd try and help everyone out, give money away. And he ended up selling the business at a substantial loss. In a rematch with Boba Olson, he apparently did not want to fight. He was barely in training camp, and no one seemed to know why this was. The Olson fight was very hard. He took a bad beating. It's almost sadomasochistic-like. It was almost like he wanted to get beaten. And it later became evident why he was so subdued in the training camp when he was charged in America for beating Adele, one of his women. The charge was withdrawn when Randolph promised that he'd marry her and all this and that. And he didn't do that. He didn't marry her. She sued for $35,000, which was double the purse that he got for Boba Olson. In the end, she ended up only getting $1,250, cigarette money they call it. But his reputation was damaged at this stage. Dick Turpin, his brother, the first black British champion, apparently in a conversation with Adele, told that his first wife, Mary, accused Randolph of violent abuse. And Adele saw this as a chance to jump on the wagon and get some money out of him, thinking that his reputation would precede him. His brother, Jackie Turpin, noticed his eyesight was failing him before the Olson fight. Yolande Pompey, a light heavyweight contender who fought Archie Moore, a big puncher, was a career-defining fight for him. You know, he hadn't boxed for years, and in the years that he was boxing, it wasn't against the highest level of opposition. He earned £1,500 for this fight. And he was KO'd badly, his legs collapsing under him several times when he tried to get up. By this time, a lot of people knew he should have retired.
Turpin took too much punishment. There's no doubt about it. He had double vision from the military fight. His reflexes were bad, his eyes were out of alignment. He should have been stopped. But the British Boxing Board of Control, they're also guilty because they knew that he wasn't fit to carry on after the military fight. They just let them go on to the end, and boxing history is full of people like this. Freddie Mills was another one. They should never have been allowed to fight after a certain stage of the careers, but they just let them go on.
He couldn't trust himself with his money, so sometimes he'd let people hold his money for him, and he'd try and come back and get it. One person he let hold £3,000, and they spent the money when he went to get it back. He invested in a rundown cafe, which was threatened by a compulsory demolition order. Though advised not to do so, he went ahead. Him and his wife run the cafe. By age 30, he was working in a scrapyard. Yes, in a scrapyard. And here comes that familiar story. For the old school legends, he was forced into pro wrestling. And at first, it was a novelty having this ring legend rolling around wrestling. Then after the novelty wore off and he was taking bouts around Britain for £25 and stuff like that. And now the tax man was all up in his business. And of course, he couldn't account for where all his money went. He spent loads on women and giving it out. And he owed them £100,000. They reduced that to £17,000 when his accountant basically wrote to the Inland Revenue a big sympathy letter how being a boxer impaired his judgment. Eventually, he started to go deaf, which they said stemmed from a childhood accident. And at age 38, he shot his daughter, who recovered, and shot himself in the heart and the head. And there you go. Randolph Turpin, dysfunctional boxer.